Good morning. Thank you so much for joining Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center's Coffee Conversations. We are so excited to have Winnie Sanders here with us this morning. She is such a delight to know, but she has some really great information to share with us about cold capping. It's something that we've been hearing about, and there's so much to learn about it. There's so much awareness that needs to kind of be discussed, and so we're really excited to have Whitney here, who has a unique story, a unique experience, and can kind of lend a lot of those learned lessons and all of the things to those who are beginning this journey. So before we start talking about cold capping specifically, Whitney, can you kind of just tell everybody, who you are? If you want to share about your breast cancer journey, please feel free to do so.
Hi, everyone. So Whitney, I'm 36, a mom of two. My career is in investigations, and my passion lies in advocacy for women. And my breast cancer, I was diagnosed with stage 3, grade C, in August of 2023 when I was 35. And I completed treatment in June of 2024. I had 13 rounds of chemotherapy, double mastectomy, and 30 rounds of radiation.
That's a lot. How did you kind of take care of yourself in the midst of all of that? Like, I mean, just being a parent is a lot on a regular
Right,
day
right,
is a lot of fun. And then you throw breast cancer on top of it. I mean, and you had
right,
a very hard diagnosis, I feel. I mean, stage 3 is
right,
one step away from that step,
right.
like it's scary. So, like, how did you make sure that you took care of your body and your mind? And, ultimately, of course, you want to protect our babies too.
Right,
Can
right.
you if you want to share,
Yeah,
just
no, that's fine.
how you got through that process?
Um, for me, I'm a really spiritual person, and so mentally for me was just a lot of time with God, a lot of time in prayer and journaling. When I was diagnosed in August, I started chemo in December. So during prime cold and flu season. And so I had to, self isolate also to no one wanted to risk getting me sick. And so that was a lot of quiet time, a lot of downtime. So to kind of quiet the noise of, fears and anxiety and things like that, it was, a lot of journaling. I love to bake. So when I felt well enough, did a lot of baking with my kids and everything. I'm a single mom. So with them, it was just letting them see that, yes, mom's going through a hard time, but mom is, surviving, and we're just going to do the best we can in this new season that we've been given. Physically, I worked out regularly prior to my diagnosis and everything, like about 5 days a week. And then after my mastectomy, I got back on my regimen before chemo started. And I really think that had a lot to do with me healing so well from chemo and from the mastectomy because I was in such good physical shape going into my diagnosis.
Mhm.
Because once chemo started, I wasn't able to work out for probably, I'd say, from December until April. I didn't feel well enough to work out other than maybe like a walk here or there. Um, and so really it was just making sure I got sunshine, on my body at least 10 minutes a day. I just sit outside just for some sun and um, being able to just talk to other people who were going through the same thing as me or had been through it and just being able to relate was really helpful. And then having a good village. I'm blessed enough that I had a great village of family that, really surrounded me and um, just helped in any way that they could.
Well, I want to applaud you for working out 5 days a week. Like that, you need your flowers just for that. Because, girl, like I'll have like a free 30 minutes, just being a parent, and I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm gonna do nothing
Nothing. I
minutes.
know.
So I just want to applaud you for that. So I know you mentioned that you had 13 rounds of
Mhm,
chemotherapy.
mhm.
So I know that with chemotherapy, oftentimes there's hair loss associated, hence the conversation
Right.
that we're having today. And there are some resources available for individuals to kind of explore. when
Mhm.
it comes to that. So kind of tell us a little bit about like how you even found out about cold capping, and what kind of like gave you the oomph, I'm gonna do this. Like I think I want to try it.
So I found out about it from it was someone I was following honestly on Instagram, and she had mentioned that she was going to cold cap. I think she had just been diagnosed and was starting her journey. And so I watched her first chemo journey that she filmed, and she was cold capping. And so then I just started diving in, looking into it, trying to find all of the resources. And what I learned from it was that there were two, main different types of cold capping, manual and machine cold capping. And so then it became a deep dive down the rabbit hole of which one is going to be best for African American hair and who's done this before me. And that clearly became very apparent that really no one had done it,
Mhm.
and not that they had talked about anyway. And and so I just took it from there. And then that's where I decided to go with the manual cold capping for my hair. So my hair looks like yours before I decided to cut it off a few months ago. I had locks like you did. Um, and I found that the manual was the best for that.
Well, African American hair, black hair is like a subject all in itself, right? Like how
Mhm.
to care for it, how to love on it, how to make sure it's healthy and all the things. So
Right.
I want to applaud you for even though you wanted to do cold capping, like just not only having being a black woman with your natural hair, but also having
Mhm.
locks on top of that. Because like then you
Right.
change the conversation when you have locks, it's all still different.
Yeah.
I want to applaud your bravery to say I'm going to try this because that can be discouraging.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could just say, I'm gonna just shave it and reattach it when my hair
Right.
grows back.
Right.
I want to applaud you for that. So I know you mentioned that there was like a machine cold
Mhm.
cutting and a manual. So can you tell us the difference in
Mhm.
how those are operated? Like, so what does manual look like? What does machine look like? And then
Right.
we'll kind of get into the other like questions. And if I'm bombarding you with
Oh,
questions,
no, no, you're fine.
you might have like just send a list and I'll just upload it somewhere.
Mhm.
But
So
yeah.
the machine cold capping, it you have to find a center is the first step. You have to find somewhere that already has the machine. And here in Birmingham, it was only UAB. And I was receiving chemo at Brookwood. So that took that out the running for me because I had to decide where I wanted to receive treatment. And I had decided on my oncologist with Brookwood anyway. But the machine cold capping is there is it's a water-based system, and there's water running through this machine. They fit a cap onto your head with like I guess basically like a hose attached to it. And then they have different levels of the frozen water that they're going to run through this cap. And that will freeze your hair follicles to prevent the chemo from attacking those hair follicles. And so with that system, you pay for that system, but they give you like a card in that system, and they preload your card with however many treatments you paid for of it, and you put your card in the machine for each treatment you're going to receive. And with the machine cold capping, you you had to wet your hair an hour before your treatment began. So say like an hour before, or like right when you were heading to the treatment center, you would wet your hair with really cold water and conditioner to lay it down to make it slick. And obviously, I was thinking about, well, if I'm starting chemo in December, I don't want to walk out the house with ice cold, wet hair. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but you do have to do that. And then when you get to the center, they start the cap on your head, and you continue it based on what type of chemo you're having. You continue it for 3.5 hours at least post the chemo finishing. And then you're done. So then with manual, you you're mailed caps in the mail. It's three rectangular caps that you put on top of dry ice. They're in a big cooler. You layer them with dry ice to bring them to a temperature of about negative 36 degrees Celsius. And then with that, you are essentially molding a cap onto your head. It's hard and frozen from the dry ice. And so my mom was the person that did it for me, and she basically folds it down on top of my head and then they send you these straps where you strap it all into place. And so with that, I wore them an hour before chemo started. So when they were administering my pre-meds, I wore it for that whole hour, and then they would start my chemotherapy. And then I wore it with adriamycin, I wore it for 4.5 hours after chemotherapy. And then with Taxol, it was for 3.5 hours after. Now, the big difference with the manual also is that you have to change it every 20 minutes for that entire duration. Whereas with the machine, you're leaving it on the whole time. There's no needing to change it. And so that I would say was the most taxing part, at least probably on my mom, because she's having to rotate these caps in and out, keep them at the correct temperature. And it was about we'll say an 8-hour day of cold capping, essentially.
Yeah, I
So
mean, that
yeah,
sounds like a lot of
yeah,
work. I know there's a lot of costs associated. I know we talked a little bit previously about it, but I
mhm,
mean, the cost of it is also a huge barrier because
it
it's not
is.
covered through insurance. Not even a lot of people know about cold capping, and I know that
Mhm,
there's a machine and there's manual.
mhm,
I know that the manual has tiers.
right.
Does the machine also have tiers, or is
To
that
my knowledge, I didn't look into the machine as much, but to my knowledge, it does not have tiers because it's just one thing you're putting on your head and you're just paying for it. Um, and I do think that it was a little bit more expensive than the manual. The manual cold capping, so there's Penguin and then there's Arctic are the two companies. I don't know all of the details of Arctic, but with Penguin, which is what I used, you receive 3 caps. Um, and the lowest tier is $389 per month. And the middle tier or the next tier comes with a cooler, like the cooler that you're going to put them in. And that one's about 400 something per month, but you have to send the cooler back. So I just bought a cooler for $30. That way I'm not paying an extra amount per month for something that I don't own.
Mhm.
And so, and then you have, um, then if your oncologist happens to have a bio freezer, you could pay, I think it was 500 per month, and they send you 10 caps and you keep them in the bio freezer, and then you didn't have to worry about transporting them yourself or anything like that. But I couldn't find, my oncologist didn't have a bio freezer. Um, so those are the options. And so then they'll prorate it based on when you return it. So if you don't need it for the entire month, you return it and they'll give you that money back. Now I have submitted a insurance reimbursement for durable medical equipment, and some people have success in getting a reimbursement for at least some of it from their insurance companies. So I'm still in a 30-day window where I'm waiting to hear from them if I'll get a reimbursement or not. But I figured it's worth a shot. And the hope is that a lot of companies begin to see it as an actual necessary durable medical equipment because it does, save your hair. Um, but both of the companies were pretty much founded in the United Kingdom. And so that's why there is not a lot of US based research on them.
Well, I hope that they reimburse you for most of that. I mean, because it's expensive. I mean, and then I know you talked about just like the tiers of, the caps and the coolers and
Mhm.
things, but I mean,
And
the
then you have the dry
drives,
ice. Yeah, you have the dry
and
ice.
yeah, and find
And that
someone.
can get expensive. So I live in Shelby County, and I could not find a business that would sell it to me because they only sold commercially. So I was really fortunate. I found an individual he owns Woodlawn Ice, and he sold it to me. So I would meet him every week or every 2 weeks, depending on which treatment, um, at one of his ice facilities, and he would load it into the cooler for me. And he was the only individual I could find that would provide it to me. Now Publix sells dry ice way more expensive because you need about 60 pounds per session. Um, and so Publix, I want to say I had to buy from there one time, and I want to say it cost me a little over $100 that one time. And so, if you're having 13 chemo treatments, that's $1,300 just in dry ice on top of the, about $2,000 for the cold capping itself. So
Yeah,
it's, a lot.
that's very expensive. And
Hmm.
even if, and that's a huge barrier for somebody, and it's unfortunate because nobody asks for cancer and
No,
nobody wants to do chemotherapy and
right.
possibly lose their hair.
Yeah,
So it sucks. And
it
I'm glad that you did find someone who was like, you know what, I might not be able to solve all the things, but this is something you're looking for and I can assist with. So I
yeah,
that's a nice little silver line
yeah.
in all of that.
And
Uh,
I honestly, my family, they started like a GoFundMe to help fund the cold capping. And so I just want to say that there is that as an option for individuals to start that, because there are, a lot of, between family, friends, coworkers, there are so many people who do want to help you through your diagnosis, but don't necessarily know how or what you need, because obviously there's not much that they can help you with. And that became something that when everyone said, well, how can I help you? This is what I need help with, and I had to kind of set my own personal pride aside and say, I need help with this.
yeah, you know that saying, pride goeth before the fall, and
Uh-huh.
I love that you identified a way that when somebody was like, "Hey, can I help you?" Yes, could you please,
Yes.
help with this? So that's really awesome. And I'm glad that you had a support system who was willing to
Yeah.
kind of step in and be those people for you. Um, and I didn't know that there was a machine portion, so that's really cool.
Mhm.
Well, specifically, is this just with Penguin or
The
like do
machine is with, it's not with Penguin, and if we wouldn't have said it, I would know it. Um,
you
it's not Arctic. It's not Arctic that has the machine. I'll circle back to it, or I will look it up and I will send it to you so you can add it to
sounds
notes.
cool.
But I
Yeah.
do know for sure that UAB has the machines for it. Brookwood does not.
Okay.
So, but each company has like a find me type of tool on the website that'll tell you which facilities do have it, in their specific area. So that way you don't have to try and figure out who to call to see if they do have it.
Awesome. I'm just learning so much. You should see my little notepad of the stuff I'm writing down. And I know that you mentioned too, like you say, you had logs like me, during your treatment or
Hmm.
during your diagnosis and,
Hmm.
you started the chemotherapy and all of that. I kind of want to talk a little bit specifically just because, like I said, Black hair is a topic all within
Hmm.
itself that is, full of all of the things. And so I know we had a conversation on the phone some time ago about some differences that you had to kind of like learn and test out
Right.
during this. Because I really want to speak to that too, because
Yeah.
sometimes when we don't see people that look like us doing something, we feel like it's not for us.
And not for us
But we
exactly.
don't really we don't explore, well, how can this be for me? Because we don't
Mhm.
necessarily see it. And so now that I have you here, I'm going to like really latch onto that. And I want to talk a little bit just for like if there are girls who are like you and me with hair like us, what are some differences that you notice in the way that you had to navigate temperatures and all of the things with your hair
Mhm.
as you were going through the cold capping process?
So the difference is, so I guess I'll start with the instructions that I was given. Um, so the instructions that I was given said to have the cold caps be between -32 to -34 degrees Celsius, to change them every 25 minutes, um, and to part your hair down the middle and just kind of have it frame your face, um, or to pull it straight back. So obviously, with locks and with African American hair, our hair is too full to just, flip it straight back, or,
Mhm.
however we're gonna do it. And so what I found as far as locks that worked for me was, I wore my hair in really light, no tension twist. So I basically twisted my locks into maybe 8 or 9 sections, not very bulky, um, just very loose, just to get them to not be so full. Um, and then for me, wherever you have your scalp showing, basically, you want to prevent frostbite because it is so cold. So I put gauze on the middle of my scalp where my scalp was exposed. And then as far as temperature goes, it was negative 35 to negative 36 that worked best for me. I had to get it a bit colder because my hair was so thick. When I started with the temperature they recommended, I couldn't feel it. And I knew if I didn't feel cold, that it probably wasn't working.
Mhm.
And so negative 35 to negative 36, and then leaving it on for less time each cap. So instead of the 25 to 26-minute range, um, my mom would have a timer. We had a timer that went off at about 15 minutes. She would start getting the next cold cap ready. And then at 20 minutes, we're taking it off and putting a new one on because because our hair, kind of holds heat and everything. And so the caps would get a little bit warmer faster than say with Caucasian hair. Um, and so those were kind of the top things that worked for me. And then when I did start losing some locks, I stopped the twisting, stopped the sections because I just didn't want to manipulate it too much. And so I just wore it down, and then I wore a hairnet, like a hairnet you would wear, I guess, with a wig or something like that, or a hairnet on top, and that smushed my hair down enough for the cold cap to be able to really get as close to my hair follicles as possible.
Well, I want to thank you so much for, sharing your journey. And then also, like I said, just kind of mentioning some of those differences that you had to kind of adjust. Just because, some of us have that really poofy hair, some of us have very fine hair, or, all of our textures are just so different. And so I just, like I said earlier, I really want to give you your flowers for your bravery, and your ability to like share about your journey with cold capping and your breast cancer journey. Before we close out the recorded portion of our coffee conversation, is there anything that you kind of want to leave viewers with, whether they're hearing the conversation now or somebody who might see it later?
I think I would just leave everyone with to just, trust in yourself, to trust in your intuition in this journey, and to just know that what we as women can put our mind to, we can accomplish. And don't let anyone make you feel that you cannot reach your goals or that you cannot beat this journey, because you can.